And we're back at Gully to Gully, but nothing has changed since, I don't know, our last episode a couple of weeks ago. The same old Pakistan team losing, and losing even more. Newer faces, but same result. But to be honest, I mean, I don't know about you, Moin, but at least from my point of view, at least from the T20 series, which Pakistan got hammered 4-1, and it was a hammering, looking at some of the results. I'd rather have had it this way with this team losing rather than having the same old faces losing anyway. So some big issues, but at least it was a good, at least there was some learnings.
Absolutely. Like
If no wins, at least some learnings.
Zahid clearly loves this joke, but basically, I completely agree with you, right? I mean, I get all these reels talking about how all those barber haters must be reeling and feeling, how feeling silly for ever thinking that anybody else could do the job that he does. Look, I think it was refreshing to see not Pakistan lose so badly, but refreshing to see the change of intent, and also the fact that they persisted with this new intent despite being hammered in the first two games. Then in the third game, you saw what it could result in. Right now, I know it's a one-off, but it just goes to show how much potential can be unleashed. Right, you've got to give these players some slack. They don't have much international experience. They're playing in New Zealand. If anybody watches the first two games and watch all the plays and misses that took place, I would hazard a sort of an estimation of at least 75% of them were Pakistani batters trying to sort of hit on the offside and missing the ball because the ball bounced too high, more than expected.
Yeah.
You know that just stems from one thing, and that's a lack of international experience. These guys have grown up playing in Pakistan where bounce is low, and then you're in New Zealand with lots of bouncy wickets. So it's a very clear reason why a lot of those potential boundary balls just got missed because the ball just bounced higher than the batter expected. But they did not change their intent, right? They said, we're going to play with this intent. We got hammered. We could embarrass ourselves again and again. But we are committed to a change in approach, because what's the difference between losing this way and losing the other way? When a loss is a loss, at least here you
especially in a bilateral where net run is irrelevant, right?
Yeah, I know it's a net run, exactly. In a bilateral series, it's irrelevant, right? So when you think about it, why wouldn't you play like this? Why wouldn't you give yourself a chance of winning if the downside is just a potentially heavier loss than you would have expected? Yeah. Who cares? I mean, I definitely think our T20 openers. Now, look, you have to remember we're missing Fakhar and Sam. Okay, they will slot into any T20 and ODI team that Pakistan will ever assemble, right? The question then becomes where does Haris go, and where does Hassan Nawaz go, right? So I in my head, I see Hassan. I see Fakhar Zaman doesn't open. I see Hassan Nawaz opening with Sam Ayub, Fakhar Zaman at 3 or 4, and Salman Agha also at 3 and 4. I mean, occupying the other spot depending on what's chosen. And Haris comes in at 5 or 6 like he used to do before. But I like to see the fact that these guys have potential, and I genuinely think they do. Right? I thought Salman Agha captained very well, and his anchoring, if anything, Babar Azam should take a lesson from Salman Agha on how to rotate, strike, and keep the momentum going. But the one thing we need to talk about is the bowling. Nobody ever talks about the bowling. People just say, oh, the batting, oh, look at, we lost because we didn't have Babar Azam. No, you lost because you conceded like insane number of runs in every single game, even the game you did win.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, and just for a disclaimer, I mean, the theme is the same for the ODI series as well. We're recording this before the third ODI, but probably Pakistan will lose anyway, so it'll be a 3-0. Nothing is going to significantly change. But I mean, yes, I agree with you on the batting, and as far as the bowling is concerned, look, I think we need to just this experiment. It's not even an experiment. This whole Shaheen Afridi thing, I think it's gone.
Gone.
I don't know what he's trying to do. Shadab Khan, the experiment or whatever it was. I mean, for his words, Sufyan Makim in the couple of games that he's played has been infinitely better. as a bowler, which is Shadab Khan's main trait. Forget about the odd 20 odd runs he scored in one match, Shadab Khan, which is probably all he
Don't
did.
forget his fielding
Uh,
lapses.
yeah, and his fielding drop. Yeah, he dropped a couple of catches, and the bowling was absolutely useless, right? So, I mean, yeah, I don't really know what the purpose of him being in the team is, especially as vice captain. Honestly, I think that experiment is done. He needs to be shelved now. Sufyan Mukim, maybe there was a mystery factor, or whatever, and was so much better in the only game that he played. And even in the ODIs, he's done a much better job. And we'll come on to Mohammad Wasim and Akif Javed as well, who've done better. Or again, back to the same point. At least you're trying players rather than reverting to the same old. Naseem also was disappointing in the ODIs, but Shaheen Harris, of course, was better, but he was good in South Africa and Australia because of the conditions. But I think the Shaheen Afridi thing is done.
I completely agree. I mean, the fact that he was even selected for this is beyond me. If you're going to switch the batting around, why not switch the bowling? The bowling, the experienced, famed bowling lineup is what lost you the game. I mean, don't forget Shadab's, his ground fielding. Remember that four that just went straight through him in mid-on?
Yeah, straight through,
Because
literally.
he has this wry smile, this sneaky smile, like a kid that just took cookies out of a cookie jar. Like, I just feel this lack of seriousness that comes in is just baffling. Whether it's contacts, connections to six times, I have no idea. And I don't want to speculate, but I hope he's out. I think Sufyan and Abrar are your two spinners. I actually think so. Like, although Abrar is the more experienced one, Sufyan is the one that presents more threat just by nature of the left arm angle and all that. I get excited by thinking of what Sufyan could do. I feel his ceiling is higher than Abrar's. But unfortunately, you can't play both because neither of them can bat. But regardless, like I just thought, I mean, our bowling is what lost us the game, or most games in the T20 series. Was the batting terrible in some places? Yes.
Yeah.
And I think, we do need to say that execution is an issue, right? And now,
of course,
but, and is positive intent just trying to hit every ball for 6 or 4? Probably not. Was there, at least in the first 1 or 2 games, did they go overboard in this change of intent? Perhaps. But then even after the game that they won, game number 3, even in 4 and 5, they lost pretty handsomely. But you just have to remember that this change takes time. When England changed their approach, it's not like they became the world's best team overnight. It took time. And for Pakistan in particular, without the infrastructure, it'll take even longer, and we just have to accept that, right? But we have to stay committed to the cause. The cause
same. Yeah, no, I agree. It's about the commitment and trusting the process, as they say. Although it might be frustrating, but like I said in the beginning, I think I'd rather lose this way than like we've done in the previous series. I think it was the T20s in South Africa or in Australia, where it was the same team, the same approach. At least we got to see something new. It will take time. Obviously, there have been some issues, like you say, the bowling. Even in the ODI, I think the first ODI, I mean, to lose it from where Pakistan was after that Babar Azam dismissal. So that came from a bit of an experience, I guess.
But I think with ODIs it's different, right? I with ODIs, I've said this before as well. I mean, Rizwan is a hit and miss. Like, on one day he looked okay or good, and on the other day, like in the second ODI, he looked terrible. He looked absolutely terrible. And I'm done with this like PR machine that tells me how Rizwan is a stellar batter. He's not. He is not.
No.
You can't have such an up and down that happens over the course of a couple of days. Yes, I know batters lose form, but with Rizwan, he'll either wake up being able to find time, the timing, or he just won't, and he'll be terrible the whole time, and you're waiting for him to just give his wicket away. And I found that the difference between the two is how early he can get his release shot in. He has these 2 release shots, one on mid wicket, one square leg. And if he does not get that earlier on, and the bowling is tight, he's going to struggle. And it's just, I
Yeah.
think the team is carrying him as opposed to the other way around.
Yeah.
And the bigger issue I feel is number 6 and 7, right? I mean, like Tayyip Tahir, I have no idea why he's still there. I have no idea. I mean, this Lahore Kalandar's favoritism. I mean, what on earth is he doing? He looks like he's scared every time he walks out to bat. I don't know. 7, Irfan Niazi. Look, I went a lot by what Jason Gillespie said, and I thought the guy knew what he was talking about. But now I've come to the conclusion that everybody will just hate on the decisions made by other coaches. Like maybe Irfan Khan Niazi doesn't have it. I don't know. I've seen him in like 8 to 10 ODIs, and he's pretty much failed in situations just like the one in the first ODI where he had it handed to him on a silver platter to finish the game. At number
Yeah.
7, if you're a specialist batter, you have to finish games. You don't bowl, you don't keep wicket. You are literally there at number 7 as a slogger to finish off a game. If you can't, you shouldn't be playing. And I was very disappointed in Irfan Khan Niazi. Really
Yeah.
disappointed. Like, that loss is just ridiculous.
Yeah. And it's and it also, I mean, playing, especially that game, playing him and Tayyip Tahir meant that you were a bowler short, which ended up, Pakistan conceding whatever,
Costing, yeah, absolutely.
2,000 runs in the last 10 overs because you
Dude,
had
what is this
Salman
issue,
Ali out
Zahid?
as
I
your.
want to talk about this. What is this death bowling issue? I don't get it. I
And
don't
it's the
get it.
same against New Zealand. It's like 5 games in a row against New Zealand where it's been the same thing, right?
And this is not even
Literally
the
the same thing.
strongest New Zealand side that's played
Yeah.
because of the IPL.
Like,
Like,
who's Muhammad
what goes
Abbas?
on?
Who's James? Like, hey, like, who are these guys?
It's just look. I'm going to tell you, Shine Lufidi should be dropped from all forms of the game. I mean, I'm sick of
Yeah.
saying this. People deserving players like Mir Hamza, Mohammad Wasim
Yeah.
Jr., Akib Javed aren't playing. Wasim Jr. was
Yeah.
infinitely bad. He had them struggling at 132 for 5, which, by the way, I mean, Zahid, you and I have talked so much about Pakistan getting the other team 5 down, or 4-5 down, whatever, and just bringing a newcomer into the spotlight, bringing an out of form player in form, and just completely losing it from a winning position. We saw it again. We saw it again. I blame Rizwan on this occasion. His captaincy, I thought, was pretty bad. You had bowlers who were bowling really well, and I remember he took them off, right?
Yeah.
And I don't understand why you would take off your premier bowlers at the time to keep some overs left for the end, when your instinct should tell you that there should be no end. The end is now. 132 for 5,
Yeah.
180 all out, done.
Especially when it's happened to you so many times. It's happened to you so many times in the last 4 or 5 games. I mean, probably for the last year or so, but against the same opposition so many times where you've just gone whack, whack every time. And this is not even like 70, 80 runs, right? In the last 8, 9. This is like 120, 130, 150. This is like T10 level.
It is. Whether it's Sufyan or Mohammad Wasim Jr., whoever was really your most threatening weapon, they need to be
Yeah.
deployed in this moment. And Rizwan, to his credit, did do that in South Africa
Yeah.
in the series before the Champions Trophy. But suddenly, he went back into his shell. And I just
Yeah.
think the confidence level in that dressing room is at an all-time low. People are in
Yeah.
autopilot mode. People aren't, they're waiting for things to happen and fall in their plate rather than actually
Yeah.
searching for things, searching for wickets, searching for seizing
Yeah.
a match. Um, for all those interested, Akib Javed before the ODI series said, "Oh, don't worry about T20. It's a new side. But ODIs, we have a very settled team. You'll see. We lost only 2 matches in the Champions Trophy. Only 2 out of 2. One game we lost because premier batter was out in like the first over. Okay, I guarantee Fakhar Zaman batted
Yeah.
and opened the innings, you would have still lost, but never mind. And then, against India, yeah, we had a bad game. And you're like, but how many excuses will you make? I don't understand. What settled team
Yeah.
do you have? Please tell me. Who are your what's
Yeah.
your bowling attack? What's your spinning
I
option?
mean, you have a settled bowling attack that you're stubbornly supporting,
That's
regardless of what
terrible.
the situation is.
It's
Even
a,
Naseem, like he's
it
been very
can't get
disappointing.
worse. What's
Yeah,
the
and he's not
fear?
young anymore.
Who?
Naseem has been disappointing. Naseem Shah, he's not young
Naseem
anymore, right? You
Shah.
can't
Yeah, I
just
mean
be like
Naseem Shah's been scored. I mean, I think he's better. He's a better batter than he is a bowler. I call him No Seam Shah.
con,
I
con, con, that's a good one. Concussion sub coming in, getting a 50. But this is a problem, right? I hope he doesn't become a shiner free now and starts thinking he's a batter.
I actually hope
Uh,
he does. For me now, I think this guy has actually, like when I look at him, he's got some wheels with batting. Maybe he turns into an all rounder and he solves
but when
that
it
issue.
again, but when it mattered in the previous ODI, where he just had to stick around with Salman Ali Agha, he couldn't do that, right? He got out in the first
But he did
ODI.
do it. If you do you remember, he did it against South Africa when he
In
had to
South
stick
Africa,
around with
yeah.
the. So he has
I
done
think
it.
he's good when you. I think he's good when you need to go at like 4 or 5 and over, but not when you need to go at like eights and nines.
Sure, but
You
I
can't
don't know.
fill that up.
I think that guy has. But I mean, his bowling just look. I think we have to accept that Haris and Naseem are bowlers who don't move the ball. They just rely on
Yeah,
pace. And actually, good
yeah,
batters take a liking to it. I think Virat Kohli takes a great liking to Haris Rauf. I know once he said, "Oh,
yeah,
Haris Rauf is a good bowler," but I think in his heart of hearts, here's a bowler who bowls at pace and doesn't really
yeah,
have much lateral movement, which is what Kohli fears the most, especially away from his off
yeah,
stump. And so it's
yeah,
right up Kohli's alley, and
yeah.
and most batters will think that. Haris Rauf will only do well in menacing wickets of Australia and
Yeah.
maybe parts of South Africa.
Yeah,
But
and in
other than
T20 where his change of pace comes into handy, right? That's
yeah,
where,
exactly.
but not,
Exactly.
yeah,
But when it comes to like swing, seam, it's cutters, it's completely absent.
yeah,
I genuinely think that the downside is nil by just completely revamping this fast bowling trio. I mean,
yeah,
they are
I agree.
even to like Shine Rafidi doesn't belong in any format. Haris Rauf just in T20s. Naseem Shah, I'm just confused about him to be honest with you. I think there are
Yeah,
moments and glimpses that he's brilliant in each format, but it's so inconsistent that he is at risk of taking up a spot.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
and a spin we've talked about, right? Either you have a
Yeah, I think in
Brad or
pace,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, and then you have to, and we got Wasim Junior, who's actually a decent bat as well, and then you've got Akif Javed, and to a certain extent, at least in T20, you've got Abbas Afridi. Okay, maybe not Muhammad Ali. I think that experiment is done, but you have decent options that you can go to in the bowling department as well. Maybe these names aren't as fancy as those three, but you
that's the
have to
problem.
make a change. Um,
Look, that's the
and I
problem.
know
I
we've got
even say, where's
we've got
Amir
Pakistan's
Jamal?
best league coming up. Yeah, Amir Jamal again. Fahim Ashraf. I mean, I don't know why he was opening the bowling. Like he's gone from nowhere to being your opening bowler.
But I think they thought New Zealand conditioned the movement, and they think this guy is the Glenn McGrath of Pakistan, so he can go and open. And he bowled pretty well. I thought 10 overs for 40,
Yeah,
one I think or a wicket as well. But look, but I genuinely think there is a thought like a mental issue here because I think it was Wasim Junior who was the most menacing of the bowlers when New Zealand were five down.
yeah,
And am I correct that they took him out of the attack?
yeah,
Didn't they?
yeah. I think a cup after an over or a couple of overs. Yeah,
After an over, after the fifth wicket fell, they took him out of the attack. They brought some other random trash. Sufyan also was Sufyan given a long thing. I think he was also broken up in staggers.
yeah,
But anyways, Sufyan, I guarantee would have got 4 wickets if there was pressure applied at the other end. But never mind. The
yeah.
mental issue I'm referring to is Wasim Junior not being considered a wicket taking option. Why was he taken out of the attack? Why? Simple, because Wasim Junior is not a superstar. He is
Because he's
somebody
not
who they
Naseem or
think
Harris.
he's someone who will just make up the numbers, bowl a few good overs, and he's I feel being utilized as a stock bowling option. That it's
Yeah,
absurd. Here's a guy who can swing the ball late, who should have been playing all this time, lost 1.5 years of his career for I have no idea why, and you're struggling. And on the batting side, at least in ODI cricket, for God's sake, I'm going to say this again. Where is Kamran Ghulam? I I don't get it. You won the series
His fielding
3-0 in South
apparently.
Africa. What?
his, Agib Javed said in the press conference, right, that when he was dropped, that his fielding is apparently an issue. As we've seen, all the other fielders are
I mean,
absolutely
all the other
brilliant.
greats of fielding are sitting here in Pakistan. The Jaunty Rhodes of cricket, 1 to 10 of Pakistan, all the great fielders. I mean, it's not like your
Yeah,
standard is so high. Look, okay, I can understand if you had such a high standard that fielding became an issue. But if
yeah,
fielding is such an issue, please tell me, what's Tayyip Tahir doing in the team? Please tell me. I can name you so many players who are terrible fielders who have played for Pakistan. I mean, it's ridiculous. We are the last team in the world to say that. The
yeah,
fact that he could only point to fielding tells me that it's either unfair or there's some attitude issue which Akib
yeah.
Javed didn't want to say because it's not a thing to say.
Or
But
maybe Akib Javed is besties with Kagiso Rabada.
oh yeah, yes, that few. But my point is, you won the series 3-0. And I think one of the key reasons you won that series was because you had someone like Kamran Ghulam who was given a role at number 5 or 6, whatever, I don't care, because Salman Aga may get a promotion to 5 or whatever,
Yeah,
to come in enforce the innings. If you're 3 or 4 down early, he's a proper test player, so he can get stuck in, or he can go and smack, and up the ante. He was ideal. And after one failing at number 3, when you had to promote him, you dropped him.
yeah.
I
It
mean,
did,
it's bonkers. And for someone who say,
and
"Oh, but he struggled in Test cricket," I don't care. Like Babar Azam
and
has
it's not like
struggled so
you,
much in
yeah.
Test.
It's not like you had Michael Bevan waiting in the wings, right? You had Tayyip Tahir coming in so at number 5 or 6 or whatever.
Exactly. And I don't buy. I think Kamran Ghulam. I mean, is he that bad a fielder? Isn't he also a keeper?
No, I think he bowls a bit as well. I don't think he's a keeper, but he's not. I don't think he's a bad fielder. I don't remember him like having any
Oh no,
horrendous
I'm
drops.
getting confused. He's not. He doesn't keep wicket, but he's in the slips, right? And I remember he
Yeah,
took a few good catches in South Africa in the slips. Yeah, okay, he may have dropped a few, but slip catching in
in
Pakistan
Pakistan
aren't
he's slip
exactly
fielder.
the best of friends.
Yeah,
You know, so I don't know.
yeah,
I just think it's ridiculous. This is the problem with having a Pakistani coach where they have all these agendas and favorite. I mean, it's just
yeah,
I cannot begin to tell you
yeah,
how
yeah,
demotivating that aspect is. I
yeah,
I mean, look, in terms of if you want to just think about positives, right? For me, there's one star in Pakistan, and I hope to God they don't give him superstar status too soon, and that's Salman Ali Aga.
yeah,
Man, that guy, Zahid, like, I love the way
yeah,
he plays. He's a good bowler. He's a very good fielder. He's, in my opinion, a very, very accomplished batter across all
yeah,
formats. This guy is an all
yeah,
format player. And yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I would call him an all rounder, batting all rounder, but still, like, you know, uh, yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, I agree. Salman are really good. Sufyan Mukim, obviously. Hassan Nawaz with that one innings followed by
No,
four
but he
ducks or
definitely
four three
has
ducks
it.
in a one. Yeah,
He
yeah, exactly.
definitely
He's
has
got something in him. He's got something in him. So I think yeah, give him a go. I'd rather have that than him
Then a
scoring
South
five
Shakili
scores
who
of
starts blocking.
30,
Yeah,
30 of 30 and then losing the game. So you might as well have that. Especially when you'll have the likes of Sammy, who's probably slightly a better version of playing that sort of game. So you'll have
and
people
Fakhar
around him,
Zaman.
and Fakhar Zaman. So I think that might, and he's worst case, he's not a bad option to have on the bench, right? If you need. Um, so I think there have been a few sparks of positivity.
And then,
Mohammad
to have
Wasim
the
Jr.
guts and courage to hit those shots, the ramps, the
Yeah,
scoops. Pakistan,
yeah,
I mean, these shots were barely part of
yeah,
Pakistan batting vocabulary until recently. I remember Fakhar Zaman would be the only one who could play the 360 shots. And for
yeah,
this guy in New Zealand conditions to just, against a pretty decent bowling attack in that
yeah,
game, he just came and
yeah,
demolished. Like it was just, and you want players like that. That's the thing.
yeah,
Pakistan needs to think away from averages. It's not
yeah,
about averages, it's about impact. impact
Yeah.
in T20 cricket is more about strike rates, right? I mean, if I give, if I were to give, and I think cricket should start this, cricket should give people, players or batters in particular, or even bowlers, an impact
Yeah.
rating. It's
Yeah.
not average striker. There is some sort of impact rating, and Hassan Nawaz's impact is high. Okay.
Yeah.
The one last point I'd make is for all of Fahim Ashraf's bashing. I mean, the guy came and actually did pretty okay. What did
True.
you make of that? Random.
Yeah, it's a weird one. It's similar to like the Khushdil thing, right? Where he was parachuted in to the Champions Trophy and the ODI squad, pretty much to everyone's criticism, and then did a pretty decent job. Look, I don't think he did exceptionally well. He just did better than the rest, to be honest. But I think at this stage, that's all you need to do to keep your place in the team. Um, but I think if they can find a way to have Fahim Ashraf in, maybe not as the main bowler, but if they can find a balance of having maybe Niazi at 6, Fahim at 7, and then that extra cushion for or Fahim at 8, but have a way to have 5 batters, and I think it could work. But I do think his bowling still needs to improve. Yes, he was economical, but he needs to be a bit more threatening. That's all
Threatening
I'd
and
say.
also, and even if you want to be an Abdul Razak, remember you either have then your batting needs to be a lot better, and also
Yeah,
remember you're playing against not the best New Zealand batting lineup around, right? And
true.
you're and you're
And
bowling
yeah,
and you're bowling in helpful conditions. So
yeah,
he would struggle. I think Pakistan needs to adapt and have different teams for different conditions. So would Fahim Ashraf and Haris Rauf play in Sena conditions? Potentially. But in India, that are in
yeah,
subcontinental conditions, that's our
yeah,
biggest issue. Our fast bowlers can't play or can't bowl well in those conditions. That is a big issue.
yeah.
I mean, I noticed you didn't even mention Kamran Kulan's name in 6 and 7, so clearly you have your
Well,
sort of
5,
stuff
6, 7.
sorted.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I would have Kamran 6. For him, I don't think is good enough at 7, I'm afraid.
yeah,
And if he's not good enough at 7, my issue then becomes, is he good enough even to take a bowling spot at 8? I'd
yeah,
rather have Wasim Jr. at 8.
yeah.
It's a very difficult one. These all rounders are tough to place in when there isn't a compelling argument on either side of the coin. You
True.
get into that whole bits and pieces
Yeah.
side.
Maybe Amir Jamal is the answer, but you're a great player when you're not in the team. So
Absolutely, especially if you're Pakistani.
maybe some other
But
random player will show up and do well in a couple of PSL games, and then he'll be the new star to watch out for. But that's the criteria for selection, right? To have one good PSL, and that kind of gets you in the team. Um,
unfortunately,
yeah,
and I will
unfortunately,
tell
it's
you
been a very
now,
negative episode.
the best bowlers that will come out of ODI cricket, you mark my words, are on a long-term, consistent basis, are those that play first-class cricket, not the
Oh,
IPL.
for sure,
And
for
I will,
sure,
and
for
I
sure.
will, like literally, take that line, and like plaster it everywhere
Yeah,
to anybody who wants to
yeah.
listen. The PSL is a T20 league. Okay, end of. That's
Yeah.
it. Remember that.
And now a very substandard league as we've seen in recent years. So,
Yeah. Well, hopefully this year
anyways,
maybe a bit better, but let's see. But anyways,
yeah,
Zai, thank you so much. Eid Mubarak to all those celebrating, or belated, I should say. One of the reasons for our brief hiatus, but we're back. Unfortunately, the news at Pakistan cricket isn't getting much better. We were hoping that maybe we had something to do with it, and we were bringing bad luck and some footage and some away from camera time may revamp fortunes. How wrong we were. But let's just hope Kudrat Khan's arm kicks in one more time. But in any case, I thank you very much. Sorry, fans, for a very,
yeah.
very negative episode. But the positive thing is the intent was different. That's
Yeah.
what matters. I guarantee
And
you,
maybe,
the
and
teams
maybe
have
we
been
can do one positive, not in terms of content, but maybe in terms of vibes. One on the IPL and stuff that's going on. Maybe some themes and whatever. But maybe that, at a later date. It's too There's too much going on in the IPL to do it
too
regularly. But
much, too
yeah,
much. I mean, the quality is insane. But yes, batting, I should say, to be precise.
yeah.
Anyways, all right. Thank you, Zahid.
Thank you.